Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. In today's video, we're going to check out the preview we got of the next summon showcase, and it's going to be a spooky summer since we got a revival of Halloween Fantasia 2. I know people are pretty pumped about this, as well as pumped about tomorrow's rerun of the Halloween facility event, Trick or Treasure. I'm glad to see this come back since it features lots of limited time adventurers who haven't been available for summoning since October 2019. So they decided not to wait until Halloween of this year. They're bringing this back now. It's a great time to pick up some of these adventurers, and this video will try walk you through the decision of whether or not to summon. But suffice to say, I think that this is a really strong banner, so this is worth your consideration. You can see that they show off a couple of the featured adventurers here, Halloween Mym and Halloween Maritimus as a dragon, but I have to presume that in addition to those 2019 Halloween characters like Mym, Maritimus, and you can see there Lowen and Halloween Odetta, they're also likely going to include on this the Halloween 2018 characters like Elisanne, Edward, Althemia, and Silk. This is the case the last time this was run in 2019, so I think they won't exclude these light adventurers, and I think they'll also have an appearance rate up. Just like before, they weren't necessarily shown here, but it explicitly says get a look at some of the featured adventurers and dragons returning, so some of them. And to me, it seems like there's no reason to give Halloween Elisanne a mana spiral now if you're not going to give players an opportunity to get her. It would just be a little bit silly to do that. So I'm going to assume the day before this comes out that everything Halloween related is going to be summonable on this. So that'll be our working assumption for the video. Obviously, once the banner comes out, you'll know a little bit more. You can clarify that yourself by going to the summoning tab and looking at the appearance rates page for more info. But basically, my argument for this showcase is if you don't have Halloween Lowen, I would strongly consider summoning on this showcase, at least until you get Halloween Lowen, and then possibly just doing another couple summons or however many summons until you break your pity rate and get 1 5-star, whoever it may be. That's personally the tack I would take on this, but if you're more of a collector, you could also go in, and if you don't have them, try pick up all the 4-star adventurers, so not only Lowen, but Odetta, Althemia, as well as the 3-star Edward, and even Halloween Silk. The great thing about picking up those is you can view their stories to collect Wormite, and Halloween Odetta among them is the other one who stands out as being pretty strong, but Halloween Lowen is like by far, he might still be the best healer in the game, but he's like by far the best of the Halloween characters in my opinion. He's always in demand for high-end wind content where you need to bring a flame team. He's the best flame healer, he might just be the best healer overall. You can make the case for regular Lowen or Cleo now that they have mana spirals, but imagine how disgusting Halloween Lowen's going to be whenever he eventually gets his mana spiral. So we'll talk about what makes him so good, but basically that's my pitch to you is if you don't have him, probably try pick him up. This showcase lasts a while, it lasts until the 29th, so you could wait until then. There's no rush. He's not of an element that's going to help you in the Trick or Treasure facility event, although you could run him and be just fine since it's neutral element content with the enemies being shadow, so he's not going to be at a disadvantage in the event either, but he's really good, so I think that's the reason you want to pull here if you don't have him. Everything here is limited time, it's staying limited time, so they clarify it's not being added to the permanent summoning pool. Nadine and Linnea are not going to appear here since this will overlap partially with their banner, so they're not here as pity breakers or off-focus adventurers. Last 10 days. At the end of this, we may get a bridal banner or gala, or perhaps a combined bridal gala, which would be kind of crazy, but I think it could very well happen. So those are all of the side considerations when you decide whether or not you want to pull. But let's start with the characters who are shown here, and then we'll go to the collection to check out the 4-stars and Halloween Ellie as well. Halloween Mym is a strong support adventurer in the flame element, but she's not one of the strongest flame DPS anymore. And I would say her role in the meta has diminished a little bit because of the co-ability change. In the past, the way co-abilities worked were that in co-op, the other 3 players, lead adventurers, provided their co-abilities to you. and you to them, so vice versa. Now, the way co-abilities work is it refers back to the 3 backline characters on your team plus your lead unit. So, in the past, if you wanted the critical damage co-ability in co-op, it meant that one of the players had to be leading with Halloween Mym so she could contribute that to the entire set of adventurers who were in co-op. Now, that's no longer the case, and that did diminish her role in the meta just a little bit. She's still a good support unit. If you look at her first skill, it deals flame damage, provides a short but effective defense debuff. Her second skill boosts the strength of flame adventurers and also boosts her own critical rate for a pretty good amount of time. So she still has some good attributes. She's a pretty strong support unit, and she also has a really good dragon form, but a large part of her role in co-op has diminished, I would say. Now, though, if you are maining a character who wants critical damage, you want to pick up a Halloween Mym for your backline. So, in some sense, she's still relevant, she's just not seen in battle as often. So if you're seeing Eslith mains, it actually makes a very big difference whether or not they have a Halloween Mym in their collection at enough nodes that she has her full co-ability unlocked, so that you get that nice chunk of critical damage to go alongside your Howling Meteor Flash of Genius combo. So she's still good, she's still very relevant, this co-ability is very rare, only her and Valentine's Melody, who's also limited, have it, and of the two, she actually has a relevant chain co-ability, whereas Valentine's Melody's chain co-ability is not very good. Obviously, chain co-abilities are element specific, so if you had both of them built, you'd still take Valentine's Melody for a win-centric team, as opposed to taking Mym. But frankly, if you already built Mym, I don't think it would even necessarily be worth taking Valentine's Melody to 50 nodes or 44 nodes just to use in the backline of a win team where you wanted critical damage, because I think you don't really miss out on too much by not getting her chain co-ability compared to just using Mym and just getting the regular co-ability but not the chain. So this Dragon Haste is really nice on her, and also respectable. I mean, it's decent to get out extra Arctoses when you're playing Eslith, for example, so I would not diminish that. She's a really good adventure to have in your collection. So if you are going for Halloween Lowen and happen to pick her up as your 5-star, it's probably great to add her to your collection, but I don't know if you would go out of your way just to get her and then try build weapon for her and everything, like go all the way unless you're a big Mym fan, in which case go for it. Her dragon form is good. What I found in the Onslaught event was it was not as good as I would have hoped for auto battle because her arms are really short, and that sounds like such a ridiculous statement when we're talking about the arm length of dragons and how that affects their role in clearing content. But in auto battle, I just wasted too much time. I couldn't get 80-second clears because she was chasing down enemies. And obviously in auto, your character isn't using their skill on their own if they're in the lead slot. So she has really good passives that affect her dragon form, but maybe in manual play she's better, but at least that was my experience with her. One last note on Halloween Mym. Her shared skill is very desirable for its animation, but I don't think it's anything to write home about from a strength or gameplay standpoint. It has an adorable animation where your character kind of does a little wiggle and hearts radiate out from them. It's one of the most precious shared skills available, but it does cost 6, and now that we know Onslaught events, at least in the first iteration, gave us 5, that means that you're looking at like multiple months to collect enough to actually share Tempering Fancy. So even though it's probably like S tier or S plus as far as animation, I would say from a shareability standpoint, it's actually not that great. It also costs like between 14 and 15,000 SP, which is a ton, and it only affects Flame Attuned Adventurers, so it might be used. I honestly don't know. It may be used in like some of the sub 1 minute Master Vault clears, but unless you have a really dedicated group who's doing that with you, I don't think that that's the norm. So frankly, I would say this is a skip as far as sharing the skill, but nevertheless, Halloween Mym could be a great pickup. Let's continue and now look at Halloween Maritimus. Halloween Maritimus, on the other hand, compared to Halloween Mym, has fallen in favor considerably. Halloween Maritimus used to be like the definitive buff bot oriented dragon for water because of his skill haste and HP combination, But now we have a dragon known as Gaibne and Kreidne. The Easter Bunny dragon, if I'm saying the name wrong, I'm sure I am. That's the one I'm talking about. That dragon gives you skill charge plus a good amount of strength. I think it's like 45% strength at least. It's something reasonable. And that skill charge just tends to be better with the strength to rapidly spam your buff-oriented skills. And in particular, I think he's even better in the shared skill world, because getting a big chunk of those hefty SP cost shared skills recharged every time you use them is super nice. So now I really only see Halloween Maritimus as relevant on healers, in part because of Hocus Pocus. It is a pretty nice way to heal the team as the dragon skill. So it's still a good dragon, but I just don't see the the Sunstones. I just don't see a reason to put Sunstones into it, except for the fact that it's limited, so you may not get more copies. So in that sense, it's sort of like a safe investment where you're not wasting your Sunstones. But frankly, we also could get a Water Gala dragon, so I don't think Halloween Maritimus is anything special anymore, long story short, but a cute dragon nonetheless. Okay, so we've covered the new stuff. Halloween Ellie, we're not going to know how good she is, but they have given her paralysis. Her chain co ability, okay. It's better in some elements than it is in light. Light is just super competitive for chain co abilities and co abilities. You have Peony providing light damage. You have Sharina, who tends to be very good and even better than a Blade if you're doing paralysis things. And then you have just, regular Blade co abilities. You have Lucretia. Like, you have a lot of affliction related chain co abilities. So this has to compete for a slot in the backline against better things, basically. So it's not quite as good. And then her abilities have just been scaled up, but there's nothing really remarkable here. Ultimately, how good she is, it's all just going to come down to her damage modifiers on her skills, which we can't know yet. So now, let's look at Halloween Odetta and the original Halloween characters in Halloween Lowen. We'll go to the collection here, Adventurers, and notably, I did not get the original Halloween characters the first time they were out, so I had to wait until the rerun to actually get them. I only got Halloween Ellie, but not the 3-star and 4-star. So here's Halloween Lowen. Basically, what makes him so great as a healer is he has regen on his first skill as well as a defense buff. Even though the defense buff doesn't last very long, it's an opportunity to trigger any double buffs on your team, which means you can do some really good setups where you have extra regen from healing double buff, you have extra strength buffs from strength double buff. It's just very strong. The cost is high when you share it, but it's not so much higher than other healing skills to make it not worth it. He's one of the best helpers for doing the Mercurial Gauntlet, for example, if you need some source of healing and you're not running it in your team. He's just a really, really good unit to have. And his second skill, likewise, this doesn't give you regen, but it increases max HP, which is also going to affect your overall survival. It's good for autoing, it's good for soloing, it's good for co-op. Means that despite whatever your teammates are trying to do to end themselves, you could potentially give them a little bit of cushion with that extra max HP. It caps at 30% still, but it's nevertheless very good. It's rare to have max HP buffs. They're just not that common in the game. And then, the chain co ability is fine. It's nothing particularly strong, and it is the 4-star rarity, but it's fine. The co ability is recovery plus 20%, which is standard. But the abilities, you don't get any extra recovery potency, but you almost don't really need it, and you do get skill prep plus 25%. So a common Wyrmprint to pair onto Halloween Lowen is From Whence He Comes, which is going to give you an extra 25% skill prep to bring it up to 100% total. And then you also get some buff time, which is going to increase the duration of your regen ticks, which is the important part about it. And then Force Charge 3 lets you get skills available in an emergency by using your Force Strike, which is also pretty good. In tighter sequences in the past, it was actually super important to get Halloween Lowen to be able to heal the right amount in time. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's it for Halloween Lowen. I'm trying to think, there was something else I was thinking to mention, but didn't think of here. Sleep Res is okay. Oh, I remember what I was going to mention. The skill prep is actually very relevant because having an immediate 10% max HP buff and an immediate 10% defense buff can help with your survival against opening blasts of trials. It doesn't happen as much nowadays because trials, high dragon trials, lower opening blasts have been lowered and reduced, but it is still kind of relevant. And for instance, I was doing a ranged off-element run of Master Volk. Surprised to find out that opening blast Master Volk actually does a pretty good amount of damage. So like having things like this is pretty helpful. And yeah, Halloween Lowen, I just think he's really excellent. He's a great healer. Let's continue by looking at Halloween Odetta. I think she should be the next one to show up since I have her promoted. So Halloween Odetta is an interesting place where we don't know how good she will be yet because her Agito content isn't out. The Flame Agito presumably is the twins coming out at the end of this month, so maybe she'll be good, but maybe not. On paper, in simulation, she seems good. She scales in power with the power of your team, but there's also a lot of buff bots in water. So you almost want on your team an outlet or a recipient for buffs with high personal damage as opposed to a mix of personal and team damage, because you have Elisanne, Gala Elisanne, you have these very strong buff-oriented characters. So Odetta is kind of a jack of all trades, and I do think that could potentially hurt her in the meta. So she has Envoy of the End. It deals a small amount of damage, but has a chance to reduce enemy defense. And then Wonderful Worlds increases her strength and nearby ally strength by 20% for 15 seconds. That's shareable. Again, I don't think it's anything you necessarily need to share. Halloween Lowen's of the characters we looked at so far is the one I would suggest sharing. She does have Frostbite equals user strength, which is kind of nice. Well, I shouldn't say that. So I was going to say it's kind of nice since she doesn't inflict Frostbite herself, so you're not going to cap this out as quickly. Like, you might only be getting Frostbite from her on a shared skill, or let's say you're doing single player, right? And you want a chain co-ability like this, but you don't want all your characters inflicting Frostbite because you'll exhaust the cap too quickly. A lot of the characters with Frostbite equals user strength, like Gald, Fjorm, Lasri, they cause Frostbite. They're going to exhaust the cap very fast. Odetta is an option that doesn't, so I kind of like that about her. But with her being a 4-star, it's also a weaker effect. So it's nice, but I don't think it's anything particularly special. And if she gets a Mana Spiral, she might cause Frostbite also. So I suppose that's sort of a moot point. Her Dragon Haste is also nothing remarkable. Her Prime Defense is somewhat interesting. You could potentially use this along with some double buff prints on her. She has Stun Res 100%, and then she has buff skill time plus 20%. It's a decent amount of buff skill time, and as I've found out recently, this doesn't just affect buff skills, it also affects some buff abilities like double buffs, which is something I never expected and never knew, but it doesn't affect primed effects for some reason. So, Halloween Odetta, she's solid. I mean, she's strong. She's a popular character. I think she looks great. She's an exemplary Halloween character with her outfit. There's a black swan, white swan thing going on with her main version and this version. But I don't think she's on the level of Halloween Lowen, or at least if she is, we're not going to know that yet for a couple days or a couple weeks even. Okay, so now let's continue and look at Halloween Althemia next. Halloween Althemia, this is an adventure I have not promoted, so that may tell you something about her viability. She is a healer. She was our first attempt at a DPS healer, but her damage dealing skill is her second skill. It's not able to be charged up really quickly. It does restore some of her HP, but basically think of her as like a prototype Heinwald. She's kind of in this Orion Sophie category where unfortunately she's just not that good. Her damage modifiers are not good. She just doesn't really have enough going on for her, but Althemia is such a fan favorite that if you want to pick her up and invest in her, go for it. She does have light paralysis equals user critical rate, but unlike the other elements, paralysis equals critical rate is available on a 5-star rarity for light through Albert and through Hunter Vanessa. So this isn't as good as some of the other elements, like Orion and Sophie have the burn and poison effects exclusively in their elements. But with paralysis, that's not the case. And she has skill prep, curse res, full HP equals strength, which synergizes well with her healing. But Unfortunately, she's just nothing remarkable. She really could have used the Mana Spiral. And then finally, Halloween Edward, kind of in the same position, although I do seem to remember him having kind of an interesting co-ability situation. I mean, he does have the Blade co-ability. His first skill deals light damage ahead. I'm not sure. I think this will heal once you upgrade it, but we can't see that because he's a 3-star. This one definitely heals, so maybe the first one does not. Yeah, he does have an interesting co-ability situation. So this is a rare chain co-ability that gives you regen when your HP is below 60%. For some characters, having a regen buff could matter. Like, let's say you're a Galaluka, but then again, Galaluka's already a Blade, so you wouldn't want Halloween Edward in your back line. So it's really hard to see when this would matter, and I think this is also a very small regen tick. It does last a while, and it activates at a pretty generous threshold of 60%, but it has a 60-second cooldown, which is huge. So ultimately, I don't think Halloween Edward's anything to write home about. Same full HP equals strength, curse res. He also really could have used the Mana Spiral. And as we already talked about, Halloween Ellie will depend on how things shake out. But yeah, long story short, I'm excited about this banner. Luckily, I already have everything on here, so I'm not going to be summoning. But if you are summoning, I wish you the best of luck. I think that there's a lot of good things you could get here. I do think Halloween Lowen is probably the best, and that would be a good stopping point if you want to do a little bit of summoning on this, is to get him and then get an additional 5-star or get one 5-star to break your pity rate. Anyway, y'all, I'm looking forward to playing the Halloween rerun tomorrow, just doing a casual look at it, kind of getting a feel for what the facility event is like, maybe playing around with some characters I don't use too often. But that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know if you're going to be summoning on this in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.